Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 47 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous episode, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But heading into Austria, the championship is looking more competitive than ever. We had 5 drivers in different teams, all squabbling for the podium positions last time out. It was really awesome to see. It was a very interesting end to the Grand Prix with a very messy last lap around Silverstone. But heading to this one then, we've got a contract to sign with Sebastian Vettel. We can afford to re-sign him for the remainder of the season. Remember, this was a last obstacle we have to get over, and now we can just save as much money as we can to then upgrade the HQ facility. So we've got Vettel for the rest of the season. Now we focus on trying to save up enough to get either the aero or the engine department to spec 3. That cost about 12 million. So you can see, this is, just over 11.5 million just to sign Vettel for the remainder of the season. So quite a decent amount of money we've had to just wait and store up for that signing. And so it's meant we have been bottlenecked a little bit. We've got upgrades on the way, but once we get those last few upgrades, that's going to be it. We then have to wait around to afford the HQ upgrade and then actually wait for that upgrade to actually come into fruition and actually, be shown up on the menu as Spec 3. But you can see the championship, well, it's level on points at the top there with Albon and Vettel. And we're at the halfway point, the contract negotiation period. This signifies the halfway point. So at halfway, there's nothing in it between Sebastian Vettel and Alexander Albon, our old teammate and our current teammate. Only a couple points back up Pierre Gasly and Charles Leclerc, and then there's a little bit of a further gap to the kind of secondary pack, I would say, of myself, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz. I mean, it's all very, very close, actually. Ocon, Russell, even Verstappen now, with a win from the Canadian Grand Prix, Checo Perez, Piastri. It is so tight. There's so many different battles going on for the top 4, then us lot, and of course, us lot being, including myself, I'm trying to bridge the gap. I'm trying to jump up to join those top 4 if I can, but it's been hard going, just generally speaking. You've seen the pattern has been, I can't seem to qualify high enough, as high as Sebastian Vettel, and then in the races, there have been many periods where he has just shown much better race pace, but maybe these upgrades coming in can help that. A minor downforce upgrade on the front end, a DRS upgrade, which may help the overtaking, despite us qualifying lower. Maybe that'll help overtake more cars from that lower grid position. But the front downforce, I feel, will be quite important. Even though it's just a minor upgrade, at times, well, many times, this car, for whatever reason in Season 3, has felt very unresponsive. We've had massive amounts of understeer at some points where, remember, all the way back to Australia when the car was still in a bankrupt state, we understeered completely off the circuit, spun, and there's been times, even at Silverstone in the wet, where it has been very unresponsive on the front end. So I'm hoping that will be a positive push forwards, and then we will go ahead and purchase the minor rear downforce upgrade, which will come in time for the next Grand Prix at Spa to balance that out. But this is a very crucially timed upgrade to keep up pace with Alpine, who are going from strength to strength, despite that, massive, controversy at Baku where they took each other out from a 1-2 in the race. They've tried to reset and just reaffirm their car a bit, and they have been doing so with this subtle upgrade into Silverstone. And I actually didn't show this R&D chart because I just forgot to record it last episode, but this is why maybe we felt so off the pace, because we were actually well below Alpine relative to everything else, basically, compared to Ferrari and McLaren. But Mercedes, let's talk about them. They've been on an upward trajectory ever since Canada. We saw Russell fighting for the top 5 positions at Silverstone, so maybe now with Russell in the Mercedes, he can get in the mixer. I would say Lewis Hamilton as well, but as we alluded to at Silverstone, it really does look like now he's got into that pattern that he has been on previous F1 games, where after the first 2 seasons, he really drops off in terms of consistency and out-and-out speed and just basically luck as well. But you never know. We are at the Red Bull Ring, so it would be quite a story if Hamilton was just to reinvigorate himself at this race, where Merc had probably been the closest to Red Bull in the R&D chart. But of course, the scaling is so tiny that actually all of us are very, very close, and it is the individual performance making a difference, as has been shown with our battle versus Vettel, and that difference in pace that Sebastian has had over us. So we head into qualifying then. More rain at the start of Saturday. It does get sunnier, though, very rapidly in the same session in Q1. So, yeah, the weather patterns have been a bit odd as of late in the season. We've had quite a lot of rain and getting a bit sick of it. But at the same time, I guess for you guys, in terms of entertainment value, it does throw up some, curveballs when you've got the rain, because AI can make a difference. And, maybe potentially teams that aren't performing so well can perform better, and some teams that do perform well don't perform. And this is the instance of that, because in Q1, two big names in this championship fight are knocked out. Albon did not go, for whatever reason, go and set a time on the dry tyres when it dried up. Red Bull made a howler there, and Leclerc on the softs, I don't know what happened with him, just traffic or whatever, because Piastri's up there. So Leclerc and Albon, two of the drivers in the top four of this championship, they're knocked out. They're going to start, remember, the sprint race here. So actually, no, sorry, I got that wrong. It's not even the Saturday, it's the Friday, technically, of the race weekend. So they'll start the sprint race at the back of the grid. So they'll have to make their way up to try and get a good grid position, and they'll probably miss out on maybe some extra points on that sprint race. So we're here for this second session then on the Friday, I must say, in qualifying here, being a sprint round. Was again another mixed up session in terms of the weather. We just about set a good enough time in the dries whilst it was overcast before this rain started to come in on the in-lap. So we didn't actually have to go again, because it actually became just too wet, and the DRS got disabled on that final lap that everyone was going out to. So we've made it through, Vettel's through, and the likes of Perez and Lando Norris in the McLaren have been knocked out. Gasly, the lead McLaren so far this season, is through, though. Hamilton is through with Russell, and as you can clearly see as well, Verstappen's Red Bull has not made it through. So there's actually no Red Bull family cars in the top 10 at their home race, the track that they own. So very difficult day then for that team, and to be fair, you can get caught out quite easily. If I didn't set that time early enough, I would have got caught out with that, with the DRS disabling. There's just no chance you're going to go better on top of the track getting damper at the end of that Q2 session. And then into Q3, it is fully raining here on intermediates right now, but there is more rain on the way, so the track could be getting wetter, and it has felt like it's gotten wetter as we've gone through this lap. By the end of it, really sheepish on the rear end, across the line for us, up into P2 now, but 9/10 off George Russell, so I really didn't set a great lap time. So we've gone again for a consecutive lap here, but you can probably tell visually the rain's getting worse. It's rapidly getting worse, and the lap time shows it. And then the car aquaplanes, we break our front wing, and that is going to be that. The lap time we've set is going to be our best lap, because it's now time for the full wets. And as I spin myself round, we get hit by Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, and we get given a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with Ocon, even though we're the car that's he should be avoiding. I don't know where he's driving. He should have been on the left-hand side, on the racing line. I've just spun the car around, and I'm going in a straight line, so I'm not even causing too much of an issue. It's not really dangerous driving, because I've already spanned the car around. So we finish up this session, actually, in P4 after all of that, but both myself and Ocon are apparently to blame for that. We've both been given a 5-place penalty, which will come into effect, remember, for Sunday's Grand Prix, not this Saturday sprint race. So I will start the sprint race in P4. Vettel down in P8, the first time in memory that I've out-qualified him. It's because he set a time on wets, because it's proof here that it basically got to full wet tyres, because some of these guys didn't go out early enough, so they decided to go out on full wets, and Vettel, his side of the garage, did that. They made a mistake, and he's down in P8. George Russell in the Mercedes at the Red Bull Ring on pole position, ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's probably the happiest out of everyone in terms of the people in the top 4 of the championship. We're on the second row for the sprint race, but we know we're going to be 5 places back wherever we finish out there, so let's try and aim for as high as we can, knowing that wherever we finish, we're going to be 5 places back from a penalty which I still don't fully understand, but we're just going to have to accept it. Ocon's in the same boat as us, but maybe now tensions will be a bit higher from this second row as we line up. It is overcast, but I don't believe there should be any rain involved in this shortened sprint race. We're aiming the car on purpose to the left-hand side, try and aim for that pocket of space between Gasly and Russell if we can get a good start, but that's easier said than done. but we'll try our best just to get on the inside of Ocon, get the elbow out to try and get up into P3. Here we go then to 5 red lights for Saturday's sprint race here at Austria. A Mercedes on pole, lights out, and away we go. It's a slow getaway for us. It's a terrible start for us. Schumacher and Hamilton jump us. We're all on the medium tyres. Bit of fighting going on at turn 1 with Ocon being very daring to get up into P3. Gasly slow. We're trying to jockey for position and trying to get him. We're going to go from the left-hand side to the right to get the McLaren, but we've been hit on the rear end and we've been spun round and we've taken out George Russell. And our side pod and the bargeboard area severely damaged. We have to take across to the escape road, and a safety car is out within a sector of the sprint race going. It's turned in from a difficult time, knowing we have 5 places tomorrow, to a disaster. Side pod and bargeboard damage for the rest of this sprint, but we're still in the top 10. We're still in this race, but it's because of this move. I was too focused on Gasly, and I did not see whatsoever this Haas right behind me, and that is a vicious way to kind of take Russell out. Apologies to him, but obviously he had no say in the matter, or no inkling, as you can see quite comically in a way how fast my car was spinning out of control. That's maybe the craziest high-speed crash we've had so far in this game. Very surprised it didn't end up in more damage, to be honest. Like, I'm actually quite lucky I've not DNF'd there, or that Russell, he's lucky he's not DNF'd. But look at the onboard from Ocon. That is lucky for him, because if he was any better, any further down the road, he would have been taken out as well. But here we are then, P7. This safety car is coming in lap 3, so this sprint race is even shorter. But now we've got a bit of a long afternoon, I guess, in this shortened race, because I now know that the straight line speed is going to be terrible, because we know from previous seasons that when you get bargeboard damage, your engineering tells you that the drag is going to be higher, and so you can see that Russell, the guy I took out, he's actually having a go at me now, and ironically we're actually fighting him now for P7, having put ourselves in that position. But it's all kicking off ahead, 3 wide between Vettel, Perez and Magnussen, and Kevin Magnussen in the Williams has gone up into P3. He's overtaken Sebastian and Perez. We have a go at Sainz, but you can just tell the straight line speed is not there anymore. We're going to try and do it in the corners though, get the elbow out to try and finish this move off on Sainz, but we're just a sitting duck now. And mid-corner, I have no grip. We have to avoid some contact with Sainz's rear tyre. That allows Russell to get down the inside, and then we just get mullered by Lando Norris. We get shoved off the road. Tsunoda with a rear end step out, as well as the Ferrari behind me, so we narrowly avoid contact with the Japanese driver, who's done very well there, but we'll kind of sell him the dummy down the inside to get back up into P9. But we're now not even fighting for any extra points in the sprint race. This is just about now that grid drop, but we're just so slow in a straight line. We'll try and keep P9 as much as we can, but into turn 1 we're hit. Tsunoda hits us and we're around again. We face backwards, and now, oh, what? I'm stuck. We're stuck. Our car's stuck. We can't move. I'm desperately trying to accelerate out of this, and I'm stuck. I can't move. I can't reverse. Reverse is not working, and this is the worst glitch on this game I've seen yet. We've been stuck on an invisible piece of the track because I'm not even on the sleeping policeman, and now we've been disqualified from this sprint race. I have been disqualified from this Saturday race. That is our race over. And that is actually how our race ends. I can't believe it. What a weird glitch. I would have understood a little bit. I initially thought I was beached on that yellow sleeping policeman curb, but I was not. I was actually further ahead of it, and I got stuck on an invisible piece of the circuit. This is Tsunoda. He cuts the corner to hit me. Like, that, for me, that's not my fault. But then look at where we get stuck. That's where we get stuck, not on the curb, like Tsunoda. Tsunoda got stuck on this curb, and I thought that's what I was doing. But I look behind me, and I'm massively ahead of the curb. And then Tsunoda continues on. He gets to continue on, and I get stuck on an invisible part of the circuit. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff, FIA. Of course, we know it's the game being a bit weird, but of course, to keep the realism, we'll just say the FIA is at fault there. I don't know what they were thinking. But, what a strange start and first half of this race weekend. It's not over yet. We've still got a full Grand Prix, but somehow, I mean, fair play, actually. It's kind of nice to see that Russell somehow came through to win that sprint race, even with, I'm guessing, damage that he got off me. Tsunoda, the car that took me out, he came in second. I don't know how he's managed that from P9 in such a short sprint race. Lando Norris up into P3. Leclerc and Albon, remember, they were knocked out in Q1, and the game simulated their sprint race to get up into P4 and 6, and Alfa Romeo randomly in P5, and Vettel down in P9. So it was a very weird simulation after I got disqualified there, and so because I got disqualified, I'm going to start from the back of the grid and then have the 5-place penalty, so I may as well take all the penalties I can for engine components and take a fresh engine into this Grand Prix, and we've got all the work to do from the very back of the grid now in the Grand Prix proper.
Good afternoon and welcome to Spielberg, and to a circuit that in one form or another has held every Austrian Grand Prix in the championship except the very first back in 1964. It was at this race that John Watson lost a bet and his beard when he took Team Penske's only F1 victory in 1976. If anything, the stakes are even higher today, with 25 points available for victory and a crucial advantage in the championship fight. The Spielberg circuit then is situated 700 metres above sea level, with just 10 corners making up one of the shortest laps of the season. One time around here is a distance of around 2.6 miles, with the best overtaking chances into turn 1 or the tight uphill of turn 3. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Yuki Tsunoda lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Drugovich, Alex Albon, and Russell. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Liam Lawson, Vettel, Oscar Piastri, and Lewis Hamilton. Bottas, Théo Pourchaire, Max Verstappen, and Perez. Sainz, Magnussen, Esteban Ocon, they've taken a grid penalty, and Lance Stroll. Mick Schumacher, Gasly, Schwartzman, and the owner-driver. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. Joining me for the Grand Prix once again is none other than Anthony Davidson. We should talk about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
So I've made my peace with what's happened on Saturday. We can't really do anything now. We're at the back of the grid. We've taken a new engine, so that is actually maybe going to help us down the line. So, you know, a little silver lining there, I guess. And with how slow we were, we may have finished, like, you know, probably lower than P9 where we were before the spin. Maybe like P12, and that would have been P17 then. So in the end, we may have actually probably looked at taking these penalties anyway and being at the back of the grid. But the fact I got disqualified, that's how the race ended. Just a sour taste in the mouth, and let's hope we don't get stuck in that same position again. We've opted to go onto the soft compound tyre. This is a bold and risky strategy, but there is some rain forecast on the way, and I reckon we can get to that rain on the soft tyres, and I want to use the softs to catapult ourselves as high as we can. It was a very weird simulation to the end of that sprint race, and it's meant that with some penalties also, Yuki Tsunoda, the man who took me out, I don't know how I feel about it, he got second place in the sprint race. He's on pole position, he's inherited it. He's on pole in the front row with Lando Norris. Sebastian Vettel, our teammate, is in P8 with a bit of work to do, with the likes of Leclerc and Albon now actually ahead of him in P3 and 5. So both of us in this Audi team have work to do today, and a lot of people have things to prove after a very messy Friday and Saturday. So let's get this show on the road. Maybe more chaos to come with rain on the way as we go to 5 red lights to the full Austrian Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go for 36 laps around the Red Bull Ring. It's a bit of a mediocre start, I would say, and we're actually taking this very conservative into turn 1, trying to find the space on the outside to try and overtake Schwartzman and Pierre Gasly in the McLaren, who got pushed down the order with penalties for his own race. So now side by side with Lance Stroll, so not maybe the blockbuster start you're maybe picturing on the soft compound, but there is chaos ahead, contact made, and you can see we're just getting so boxed in, and this is why, despite being on the soft tyre, I've taken a conservative approach, because I just don't want any more chaos. I don't want to be involved in any kind of issues, and I want a nice calm car with no damage. So we go down the inside of Mick Schumacher, get up into P19, and now we'll settle down and go from here, and hoping the soft compound will just pay us dividends, especially for this first kind of, I'd say, 5 to 6 laps here. Stroll going slow. I think Ocon ahead. Does he have issues? I think Ocon doesn't have a front wing. No, he doesn't. I don't think so. And that's why Stroll's so slow. And yes, the Alpine will pull into the pit. We'll go round the outside and get up into P17 then and start chasing after Kevin Magnussen in the Williams. Perez in as well. So it's a disaster for Alpine. Both of them early in the pit stops. Is going to take us a lap to actually to bridge that gap to Magnussen, such as how much time we lost before. But Magnussen now with a snap of oversteer, shoot down the inside, elbow out on the exit, the apex, up into P15. But yeah, that's how much time we lost, basically getting stuck behind that bit of contact at the end of Sector 1. And there may be more here in Turn 1. Portier and Bottas coming towards. We overtake Schumacher down the inside, using the DRS to get tucked up behind Portier on the grass, trying to find some room. But then in the end, we think better of it. We brake, let them battle, and Portier has made contact ahead, and it's more chaos that we have to avoid. And now there's a safety car because of that, as Portier's car is stricken on the racing line. But I just can't catch a break here. I cannot catch a break. On the soft tyres, I haven't been able to even use them properly because we just keep on having to avoid accidents. We avoided the 3 wide moment there with Portier, because if I was actually side by side with him, I probably would have DNF'd there on the back end of Valtteri Bottas, and instead we actually had to take avoiding action. We're underway again though now on lap 6, looking to make a move on Bottas, the man who, well, kind of half caused that incident. And we're up into P12 now and closing up to our old championship rivals from last season, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton into the next right-hander. Verstappen locks up, and again we have to avoid contact and avoid damage to our car, as Verstappen, I don't know, just makes a mistake basically, and then to back out of it. And now we're in a 3-wide battle with Magnussen and Perez. That's not going to end well. We're going to duck out of that as well, because I need to keep my nose clean. This is a long race. I see that, and so I'm doing the most to try and keep my nose clean, but action just keeps on finding us, as Perez and Magnussen are now having an absolute ding-dong. But we've lost a couple of positions now. We're behind someone who pit under that first set of incidents here, so that's not great. Perez going down the inside now of K-Mag, and they're going to make contact, and the front wing's off for Kevin Magnussen. 1 free position for us, but as we go through the next camera shot, let's look at Magnussen. No front wing, and that's because it's stricken on the outside, and that's going to cause a second safety car in this race. And as the safety car is coming in, the clouds are looming over. That rain is on the way. And to be fair, these two safety cars have helped us out, because this will definitely help me take these softs all the way to that safety car period. But at the moment, we're down in P15 then. Not really much to show for our efforts on the soft tyres. And all I've been doing is avoiding incidents at this very corner where Sainz is going to dive down the inside. We'll try and follow him and at least get Perez, but Sainz makes a bit of contact with Verstappen. It just seems like the AI seem very aggressive for whatever reason today at that one corner. And the Alpine speed in a straight line just gets me, and he jumps me back. But we're going to try and be resilient and dive back down his inside, because clearly in the corners we have the pace. But right now at the moment I'm just struggling for traction, it would seem, versus Perez, and maybe that's just the soft tyre wearing out. And it looks like there's a bit of a squabble going on ahead. I feel like there's a car with some damage up here, as now I can see a big train forming. We're closing on Bottas, Sainz closing up, Verstappen is right up the gearbox of Hamilton, and it's Drogovic versus Liam Lawson, and the Alfa Romeo's lost his front wing, Verstappen's lost his front wing, and there's contact for the Red Bull Honda car, and we nip down the inside of 1, 2, 3 cars to get up into P11. But Verstappen, look at him on the background of the shot. He's pulled up. He is out of Red Bull's home race. It's more misfortune for the double world champion in this alternate F1 universe of ours. Down the inside of Drogovic with the lack of front wing. A bit of tyre banging, so I just made sure there was no damage to the front wing. I don't believe so. So we're into P10. For the first time in this race, we're into the points. But the rain is on the way because it's getting darker and darker. So it's only a matter of time, but I'm kind of now doing the rain dance because I kind of almost need it to come earlier compared to everyone else because my tyres will start to wear out. But yeah, so right now the gamble on softs is not looking like it's kind of been worthwhile because we've had to avoid incidents. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, well, Tsunoda from pole, no surprise, lost pole position, and now he's down in P3, having just been overtaken by Leclerc. But Tsunoda will try and come back and apply the pressure to the Ferrari, and the Ferrari locks up and does bite to the pressure, because Tsunoda now is having a go to re-overtake Leclerc. Lando Norris leads this race, by the way, by a couple of seconds now because of this squabbling. And Tsunoda with a beautiful move to get back up into P2. He's the lead Red Bull family car, by the way, so he's doing a stunning job for the family, I guess. But Albon in the lead Red Bull car in P5 will want a slice of this cake. Russell doing well, though, to be up there in P4. Leclerc, kind of usual suspects from Silverstone. Piastri P6. Vettel so far has had a bit of a quiet Grand Prix, maybe lacking a little bit of overall pace as our car. Maybe that's why we haven't had made the most of the soft tyres, because our car's still lacking some out-and-out pace here around here. As we now watch again, Leclerc have another go at Tsunoda, and this time now Albon is also getting stuck in with a move on Russell, but Russell has other ideas, and he goes, instead of getting overtaken, he tries to take two positions from Tsunoda and Leclerc with a large dive bomb on the inside. Tsunoda comes back, and then the two will have squabble with the DRS open. Will anyone make a move on Leclerc? Don't think so. Russell, oh, Russell does, and Leclerc, it's another mistake. Leclerc locks up at the same place on the next lap, and Russell is now through into P2. Tsunoda makes an identical move round the outside again on lap 13 now to go into P3 this time. So Leclerc feeling the pressure, and it looks like he's almost backing Albon into Piastri. At some point, he's just going to meet his teammate Piastri, as now we move on to lap 14, and the rain is on the way. And there's already some cars that got a bit lucky behind us that they weren't at the pit entry yet. They didn't pass it, so they've come in. Sainz is already in on Inters. It's time for intermediates, and you can see that with how rapidly the track got wet there from that right-hander. Sector 1 to Sector 2 was insane difference, and now everyone's really struggling for grip. It's like an ice rink out there on the dry tyres on the wet circuit, and the leader, well, he would have DNF'd into the wall, but the game saved him there with a track reset. Russell's off, and he's not now made the pit entry, and we're struggling just to turn the car. We actually have to go round the outside of Russell to come in on time, and the safety car is out for the third time now in this race because of that incident. But I must say the luckiest man there is Lando Norris, because if there wasn't a track reset there, he would have been just out of this Grand Prix as he skated across. Russell did the same, but just before the pit entry and got stricken, and we're all in now. It's going to be a double stack for our team there, so that's going to lose me a bit of time. Intermediates on, and we get held a little bit for a couple of cars going by, Lawson, Piastri, and also Russell, and we actually come out on top of Esteban Ocon, ghosting through him. So we are actually going to come out in P14, it seems like, under the safety car. So we've lost, effectively, 4 or 5 positions there because of, well, just how slow we're going, the double stack, and then getting held up in the actual pit lane itself. But the biggest, well, lucky winner was Lando Norris, who still somehow is now in the lead of this race as we get going for green flag racing again on lap 17. Unable to make anything work on Ocon at turn 1, but we'll try and bide our time and see. Everyone's going to bunch up here. Can we go around the outside, be a bit opportunistic, and find that space on the left-hand side of Ocon? Now it's a case of trying to pick up the traction, but the Alpine, as shown earlier, just picking up traction so much easier. So it doesn't matter what tyre it is, that Alpine just really super off the slow corners, it would seem, here around the Red Bull ring. We're side by side still trying our best, but in the end have to just slot in, and now actually Sainz dives down the inside. So I'm not, once again, I'm struggling for race pace in an intermediate condition part of a race here compared to Sebastian Vettel, who I think's not doing too badly up there in the top 10, but it is very, very tricky out there. Snap of oversteer, side-by-side moment ahead of us. Tsunoda versus Albon. That'll be awkward, and everyone bunching up behind their side-by-side. I think Perez down the inside of Russell, and he sent Russell wide. We take avoiding action, going off circuit. It's going to be 3 wide as we come back on track, and we overtake Ocon and find ourselves side-by-side with Russell, but that was due to the other Alpine. Perez actually squeezed Russell out so much that he was going off circuit. That forced Ocon to slow down, and to avoid him, I had to take to the runoff area, came back on track behind Ocon, and then immediately overtook him. So that's why we didn't get any sort of penalty for that. Meanwhile, further up the road, the McLaren and Ferrari squabbling, and all these side-by-side moments, it's that domino effect of when they're side-by-side, they just slow everyone up behind them. And so we're trying to be opportunistic here and make moves, but it's difficult to finish the moves off because of the traction. Level pegging with Sergio Perez, who dives down the inside of Schwartzman. We do the same on the left-hand side, and we're momentarily 3 wide, trying to both overtake each other whilst getting past the Williams car. Because I'm on the left-hand side, though, that's going to compromise my line, and Ocon nearly gets us, but instead Russell will be the one to nip down the inside. But it is just, there's no smooth lap. I don't think I've had one smooth lap here. Something's always happened in one of the sectors on the lap as we now try to get down the inside of Schwartzman. Dive. Oh, who else now has got an issue? Piastri. He's got damage, so he's slowed up. Gasly, Lawson, and Perez. Can we now overtake Perez? Finally, doesn't look like it. Off that corner, it's going to be Perez instead, looking to make a move on the outside. And look behind. It's 3 wide, 2 wide behind. The rain has truly equalised things, and it is all kicking off up and down the field. There are fights going on the whole time. We've got past Liam Lawson because he got squeezed out by Perez so much, and now we're going to repay the favour to Perez, get to the apex, then get to the outside of the circuit to completely cut him off and get up into P7. So it's the highest we've been this entire race. It may end straight away because Perez is having a look at us on the left-hand side. We go defensive, we cut across him on the racing line. Yellow flags behind, and it's still going yellows because his teammate, Ocon, you saw there, that's a bit more smoke than spray, and Ocon is out of this Austrian Grand Prix. After all that fighting he put up, he's out of the Grand Prix. Back at the sharp end, it's Lando Norris just to take you through the race lead. Norris from Leclerc 2.5. Vettel up into P3 now. This man always finds a way, it seems, this season to get up the order. He's in a podium position right now. The same gap to Leclerc that he's got sort of behind, about 1.2 seconds to Tsunoda, who's under pressure from Albon. Then Pierre Gasly, 4.4 seconds back, and then 1.9 to myself. Perez still in this fight with Liam Lawson as the AlphaTauri tries to get up into a top 8 position. The AlphaTauris right now, they're both doing an exceptional job, I must say. Like I said, the rain, as it has said, is a great equaliser, and they are really out for blood, it would seem, because Liam Lawson is up into P8, and Tsunoda remains ahead of Albon, and I'm sure is frustrating him and Christian Horner to no end here, that they can't get past for that P4. Meanwhile, squabbling going on behind between Russell, Sainz, and Schwartzman. And ahead of us now on lap 22, there's some fighting going on with Tsunoda, who shoots one down the inside in a very, awkward, similar manner to the way he took me out in the sprint round. So lucky for Vettel, he remains in P3, but Vettel losing pace here, and Albon and Tsunoda fighting each other but pushing each other hard to go further and get the P3. And Tsunoda with the nose in down the inside, side by side with Albon, but he's got more things to think about. He actually wants the P3 rather. So Tsunoda in the form of his life, it would seem, in this race, pressurizing Sebastian Vettel, and the pressure will get to Sebastian just in the same way it did with Leclerc earlier in the dry. Vettel locks up. Tsunoda will make for the 3rd time in this race and move around the outside of this long left-hander, this time in the wet, which is even more impressive. And Vettel with a twitch, clearly struggling maybe with even tyre wear on the intermediate, as he's down now to P4. At the end of lap 22, on board with me, we see Sainz now is out of this race in the Haas, and that will bring out a virtual safety car, so it's not a full one exactly. And if you look at the left-hand side, look at the ladder. Leclerc is P5, so something's gone on, and they're all very close together on track ahead. So Leclerc, maybe under that virtual safety car, or just before it, has had a mistake or something, and Tsunoda is 2nd now. Vettel's in 3rd, but Albon is still having a go at him. It's just now for a higher position, and Leclerc is now having to come back through, and is now jockeying for position position. He's side by side with Albon. Will the Ferrari or the Red Bull make a move on Vettel maybe? Vettel again pressurized by two different cars. Now he's side by side with Leclerc, his former Ferrari teammate from so many years ago now. At this point in game of this alternate F1 universe, the two are now going to go side by side. Vettel actually gets some good straight line speed to get back ahead. The two side by side lock up for both, and Vettel takes Leclerc wide. Vettel's pushed Leclerc onto the gravel. Drama here in the wet, and it is now a fourth full safety car in this Grand Prix. Leclerc down to P8, shoved off the road by Sebastian Vettel. That one seemed a bit personal, and he remains in P3. No penalty, I don't think, for that. So a racing incident, apparently, with that one. The FI making some questionable decisions, but I won't complain. It's about our teammate, so go on, Vettel. And he remains in P3 ahead of Albon for now. We get Pierre Gasly. This is on the exit of the safety car. He was a bit offset on the rear end after turn 1, and we've managed to get him up into P5, and behind Liam Lawson actually sticks one down the inside, and Gasly's just struggling for grip. Maybe he didn't, maybe he let his tyres cool off a bit too much on these Inters conditions, because they do need a little bit of heat in them. And so Lawson now giving him a good fight, and the AlphaTauri is going to try and go round the outside of this right-hander. The AlphaTauris are loving outside moves, it would seem, and Lawson's going to like it, this one, because he gets to the inside for the next corner, and we'll try and finish off this move. Gasly giving it his all, but no, Lawson up into P6. The AlphaTauris are loving these wet conditions. This pace wasn't really there in the drive for them. Tsunoda was just there because of his pole position inheritance, but now in the wet, they've come alive. They really have. One person that's still not very alive in this race is Vettel. Despite having had that drama moment, he is under massive pressure from Albon. I'm really hoping he can just keep on, though. We're rooting for him, of course. Our teammate's done so well to be level on points with this man going into this race weekend. Obviously, the sprint round changed things a little bit. Vettel trying to get all he can from this race. 6 laps to go, lap 30 now, so it's flown by, and Albon has been held up by Vettel so much that we've closed up. So Sebastian is actually holding him up to the point where I could actually help Vettel by overtaking Albon myself, and then maybe even Vettel himself. Of course, he would rather keep the P3, but let's see, as our pace has not been too bad, even though obviously I had to bet into this, because at the start of this intermediate stint I was not quick whatsoever. But as we've gone on, I think the tyre wear for Vettel is hurting him. There's been a few times where I've noticed maybe the end of stints Vettel can drop off a little bit when the tyres become a bit more of a factor, so maybe that's why. But clearly you can see he's slow, because we're right now up the gearbox of Albon, and we'll look to make a move down the inside into the last 2 corners. Just easy does it in 4th gear, 5th gear, down the inside, get the elbow out, a little bit of contact, but that's racing, and we get into P4, and Albon now finds himself under pressure from Liam Lawson behind, and Vettel can breathe a little bit with 1 second between us. Literally just 1 corner, and he got 1 second on us. That's how much you can lose time by going side by side. But now we enter a very tricky phase of the Grand Prix, because it is getting drier. You'll notice there's less water on the camera screen, and now it's potentially a crossover period, but Lando Norris continues on the Inters, Tsunoda as well. As we come through, our engineer tells us it's time to switch, but we make a very late call to come in. It's a little bit questionable, as Leclerc, I think that was a message that says he's out of the Grand Prix maybe. People struggling on those Inters to keep it in a straight line. We've come in because if I'd stayed out, we would have lost a lot of time on Inters. I believe this track is dried enough where it's bone dried, like now pretty much, and we could gain positions here. But what's not going to help me is, as I came in, I hit the wall, and that caused me damage. So it's a bit 50-50. Maybe I should have stayed out, because we wouldn't have had the damage. And this damage, basically that extra front wing change, that's hurt me, because I've come out behind Albon, who I was behind anyway, coming into the pits. But you can now see that I'm massively behind. But the DRS is enabled. That's how you know. That's the time that it's when it's dry. And on this new lap 33, as we go into turn 1, all the rain droplets go away. It is bone dry, and it is time for the dry tyres. But we're on mediums. You'll notice that everyone else who's come in, they're on the softs, because I don't have a new set of soft tyres. I used my soft set at the start of the race. So that is a scenario I did not see coming that, you know, may have persuaded me to use mediums instead at the start of this race as we go round the outside of Perez to get up into P13. Albon ahead, Vettel's pit. Vettel's decided to come in as well, and he's in P11 on the soft compound. But you've got a load of people still out on intermediates, including Norris, Tsunoda, Lawson. It's a 2-3 for AlphaTauri. Russell, Gasly, Stroll, Magnussen, Bottas, Drogovic, Hamilton, all on the intermediate still. And now they're paying the price, because now two of them go off. The Alfa Romeos crisscross over each other, and Lando Norris is off. The race leader's locked up and gone straight on. And you can see how dusty his tyres are. So that confirms he went straight on that corner. And now Yuki Tsunoda, with only 2 laps to go, leads a 1-2 for AlphaTauri at this Austrian Grand Prix. But look at the lack of grip for Russell and Gasly there. But these guys now, it's too little too late. They now have to firm it. Just like in Season 2 at Spa, remember, when I kept on going on intermediates. They're going to have to hope that their intermediates kind of actually get too hot, that they become slick intermediates, and they can go on to the end. But we're going to gain a few positions. Magnussen and the 2 Alfa Romeos, they're going to come in, but you've still got the top 5 staying out on inters. It's the last lap of the Grand Prix, and this gamble that not just me and Vettel and Albon, like half the grid made this gamble onto dries, and it's just, there's not enough laps left, basically, for it to pay off, because Tsunoda is still here in P1. Vettel is the lead car on dry tyres in P8, and Yuki, bloody Tsunoda, is going to come through to win a Formula 1 Grand Prix in an AlphaTauri. The underdogs have won today. The underdogs have got a 1-2. Tsunoda and Lawson, what a 1-2 for AlphaTauri at the Red Bull Ring. It's the junior sister team that takes all the plaudits here at the Red Bull Ring. Vettel P8, Albon P9, myself P10 picking up the last point. The gamble that we all made onto dries did not pay off. It did not pay off, and Hamilton finishes ahead of all 3 of us there in P7. But what a mental race. So much happened in that one. I can't remember any of it.
Here's our winner pulling their AlphaTauri into Palm Ferme. What a fantastic race. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, you know what they say, to finish first you have to finish. And that fact was clear today, with lots of retirements having a big effect on the outcome of the race. As a driver, you tend to keep reliability concerns to the back of your mind and just focus on what's in front of you. But for the teams, races like this can be very stressful.
And look at this, they're coming out now. AlphaTauri have developed something of a reputation for forging exciting talent. And we can see that here. An incredible victory.
An incredible sight to see a 1-2 for the junior team. This is for the little guys, no pun intended. Yuki Tsunoda lifting the trophy for the Austrian Grand Prix win. What a weekend it's been for him. He got the win, and he got second place in the sprint race. But what a race for AlphaTauri as well. Both of them were alive in the intermediate periods, and then both of them took that gamble that you sometimes take, staying out inters. You know, in hindsight now, looking back, remembering Spa, when I did that and I stayed out on inters, maybe I should have known better to stay on inters. But because my engineer so explicitly said it's time for dries, and I was just about to miss the pit entry, I panicked and thought, oh no, I've got to come in. And I thought also I'll get the jump on Vettel maybe, who stayed out for one more lap before he came in. But in the end of it, he stayed ahead of us, because I also broke my front wing on the entry of the pit lane. So yeah, just a very, very topsy-turvy race weekend where we got disqualified, penalties, 4 safety cars, a lot of chaos, the race leader binning it in the pits and getting reset, then binning it on the track and getting maybe a bit of karma in reality, because to be honest, Lando Norris should have been DNF'd out that race a lot earlier because of that pit lane entry thing. So in the end of it, Tsunoda gets gifted the P1 and takes home the victory. Gasly leads the championship then, ahead of Albon, Vettel and Leclerc. Still pretty close though, 9 points in it between those top 4 positions, and only 1 point in in it between McLaren and ourselves at Audi AAR F1. It is still very much game on, and look how close things are between AlphaTauri to 1 point to Alpine, 1 point to Mercedes, and then the same points as Repsol Haas. That P5 to P8 fight is incredible. That's insane. So yeah, the show goes on, and then this insane season will go on because we've got an 8th different winner in the first 8 races. Guys, if you have enjoyed that one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.